Welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping straight into a massive stack of veterinary guides, official breed standards, and some really specialized behavioral texts.
Yeah, there's a lot of material to cover today.
There really is. And our mission today is to figure out how to properly care for one of the most majestic, imposing, and genuinely complex dogs on the planet. I'm talking about the Akita.
Which is definitely not your average dog.
Exactly. The sources we're looking at make one thing abundantly clear right from page one. Like, if you are bringing this dog into your life expecting that standard transactional suburban dynamic.
Right, the whole toss a tennis ball in the yard and call it a day routine.
Yeah, exactly, where they happily bring it back, eat a bowl of kibble, and go to sleep without asking questions. If that's what you want, you're looking at the wrong breed.
Absolutely. You are looking at a dog that is essentially an ancient, independent spirit trying to navigate a highly structured modern world.
We are talking about Japanese bear hunters here. Dogs that possess a literal turbo button when the snow falls. They have this famously stubborn, independent streak and, highly specific physiological needs that you absolutely must understand.
Because understanding those physiological and psychological needs is literally a matter of safety and health.
Right.
I mean, you are managing a creature that was bred to thrive in the harsh mountainous regions of northern Japan. They were working alongside the Matagi.
Those are the traditional winter hunters, right?
Exactly. They were tracking wild boars and Japanese black bears across freezing, rugged terrain. And that genetic history dictates everything about how they process food, how their skeletal structure handles stress, and honestly, how their brain engages with the world today.
Well, we are going to take you through all of it. We're breaking this down by looking at the ideal fuel for their massive, 60 to 130-pound frames.
Which is a huge variance in size, by the way.
Oh, totally. We'll also cover the critical structural and health risks you have to guard against, and the highly specific types of physical and mental exercise this breed actually respects.
Because they definitely won't respect just any exercise.
No, they won't.
Yeah.
So, to figure out how to manage this dog, we first have to look at what fuels it. I like to think of the Akita as a high-performance, heavy-duty truck.
That's a really good analogy.
Right, because you can't just pump the cheapest, lowest-grade fuel into a heavy-duty engine and expect it to haul a massive load up a mountain without stalling out.
The heavy-duty truck analogy works perfectly here, mainly because of the sheer density of their muscle mass.
Yeah, they're built like tanks.
They really are. And building and maintaining that kind of powerful chassis requires high-quality animal protein as the absolute foundation of their diet.
And the veterinary texts are pretty specific on this, right? They mention muscle meat, lamb, beef, and fish.
Yes, but just as important as the premium fuel you put in is the cheap filler you leave out.
Huh.
Because Akitas are surprisingly prone to severe allergies and gastrointestinal issues, their GI tracts can be incredibly sensitive.
Yeah, the sources mention that all the unnecessary additives, the heavy grains, the artificial preservatives, and the flavor enhancers found in a lot of commercial foods will cause a lot of damage.
It's not just an upset stomach either.
Right. The texts link those fillers directly to chronic skin issues, which, ends up ruining that beautiful, thick double coat they are so famous for.
Exactly. A poor diet manifests externally very quickly with this breed.
Wow, really? So you can literally see a bad diet on them?
Oh, absolutely. The skin becomes inflamed, the coat loses its weather-resistant oils, and they suffer from chronic digestive upset. This sensitivity to processed ingredients is a major reason why our sources show a massive shift in the Akita community toward the BARF diet.
Right, the BARF diet. That stands for Biologically Appropriate Raw Food, which relies entirely on raw meat, offal, and specific plant additions.
Which sounds great on paper, but
yeah, here's where I want to push back on the sources a bit, or at least on how this trend gets interpreted in the real world.
please do, because it gets wildly misunderstood.
Right. People see videos online of someone tossing a raw steak or a chicken quarter into a dog bowl, and they call it a day. But reading through these veterinary guides, this BARF diet actually requires intense scientific precision.
It really does.
It sounds incredibly risky if you don't know what you are doing.
Throwing a raw steak in a bowl is a guaranteed path to severe malnutrition.
Wait, really? Just meat isn't enough?
No, not at all. A proper BARF diet is about recreating the complete nutritional profile of a prey animal. When we say offal, we aren't just talking about extra meat.
It means organs.
Exactly. We mean nutrient-dense organs like the liver, kidneys, and spleen. Because in the wild, a predator consumes the organs because that is where the massive concentrations of essential vitamins and minerals are stored.
Wow, okay. That makes sense.
You also have to balance the calcium and phosphorus ratios perfectly, which usually means calculating exact amounts of crushed bone.
Crushed bone.
Yes. And if you get that ratio wrong in a growing Akita puppy, you can actually cause permanent skeletal deformities.
Oh my God. So it's a massive commitment to meal prep.
Huge commitment.
And even if you get the math right, the texts warn that any transition to a raw diet, or really any new diet for an Akita, has to happen over several days in very small increments.
That goes back to that sensitive GI tract we mentioned.
Right.
The dog's microbiome, the bacteria in their gut, it needs time to adjust to breaking down different protein structures and handling raw pathogens.
So you can't just switch them overnight.
Never. A sudden switch can completely derail their digestive system, leading to severe diarrhea and dehydration.
Okay, so the fuel mixture also has to change as the dog ages, right?
Mm-hmm.
The veterinary guides consider an Akita to be a senior dog once they hit about 7 years old.
Which comes up faster than you'd think.
It really does. At that point, the recommendation is to immediately switch them to a light or less calorie-dense diet. So why is that specific age the tipping point for cutting back on the high protein and calories?
Well, it comes down to the kidneys.
The kidneys, okay.
Yeah, processing high levels of protein creates nitrogen waste in the blood. Now, a young, healthy kidney filters that waste out effortlessly. But as a large dog ages, their kidney function naturally declines.
Ah, I see.
So by switching to a high-quality, lower-protein, lower-calorie diet, you are fundamentally reducing the workload on those aging organs. It's a primary defense against the onset of kidney disease, and it also prevents senior obesity.
Which ties right into behavior. Before we move off the topic of food entirely, we have to talk about resource guarding.
Yes, this is huge for Akitas.
The texts emphasize that they can be incredibly food possessive, often requiring owners to feed them well away from children and other pets.
You have to look at this through the lens of their evolutionary history, though.
How do you mean?
Well, if you are a canine surviving the brutal winters of mountainous Japan, a high-value food source is quite literally the difference between life and death.
Oh, wow. Yeah, of course.
That instinct to guard a carcass is hardwired into their DNA. In a modern home, they view their bowl of carefully prepped raw food as theirs to defend.
So it's not them being bad, it's just survival instinct.
Exactly. It requires strict management, establishing clear routines, and giving them a secure, isolated space to eat. That way, they never feel the need to escalate into defensive aggression.
Okay, so we've put the right premium fuel into the dog, and we're managing their intake. Now we have to look at the structural machinery that all this high-grade fuel is powering.
The chassis, going back to your truck analogy.
Right, because if you are feeding an Akita a diet designed to build incredibly dense, heavy muscle mass, all that weight has to be supported by a skeletal system that is under a tremendous amount of stress.
It really is.
Despite their hardy heritage, their specific anatomy makes them highly vulnerable to acute physical dangers. So, let's start with the joints.
Sure. Large, heavy-boned dogs are highly susceptible to hip dysplasia, elbow dysplasia, and cruciate ligament injuries, which are tears in the knee.
Right.
Hip dysplasia is particularly common. It's a skeletal condition where the head of the femur bone doesn't fit smoothly into the hip socket. Instead of gliding, it grinds.
Ouch.
Yeah, and over time, that friction deteriorates the joint, leading to painful osteoarthritis and severely limiting their mobility.
This is exactly why the sources stress that maintaining a lean weight is critical. Like an overweight Akita is putting a fatal amount of strain on a skeletal system that is already prone to grinding.
Absolutely.
The veterinary guys also strongly recommend diets or supplements rich in glucosamine and chondroitin. Are those supplements just acting as joint lubricants, or do they actually repair the damage?
They actually do a bit of both. Glucosamine and chondroitin provide the structural building blocks the body uses to repair damaged cartilage.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and they also help stimulate the production of synovial fluid, that is the natural lubricant inside the joint capsule, while simultaneously reducing inflammation.
So it's preventative and restorative.
Precisely. You want to provide these nutrients from day one to protect the joints before the grinding causes irreversible damage.
Protecting the joints is definitely a lifelong chronic management issue, but the texts highlight another mechanical issue that is an acute, terrifying emergency for this breed.
We're talking about bloat.
Yeah, gastric dilatation volvulus, or bloat. I really struggled to wrap my head around this when I was reading. If this dog is historically tough enough to hunt wild boars, why are they so incredibly vulnerable to their stomach suddenly twisting in on itself?
I know, it feels like a biological paradox, doesn't it?
It totally does.
You have an apex predator brought down by its own stomach. But it comes down to physics and the shape of their chest cavity.
Okay, walk me through that.
So, Akitas, like many large breeds, are deep-chested. Inside that cavernous chest, the stomach is suspended somewhat loosely, almost like a hammock hanging between two trees.
Okay, a hammock. I can picture that.
In a bloat scenario, the dog eats, and the food in the stomach begins to rapidly ferment and produce gas. The stomach dilates, swelling up like a balloon.
And because the chest is so deep, there is physical room for that expanded balloon to swing around.
Precisely. If the heavy, gas-filled stomach swings too far often due to the dog running, jumping, or rolling around right after a meal, the hammock flips over. It twists on its axis.
Oh, wow.
This is the volvulus part of the condition. The twist completely seals off both the entrance and exit of the stomach.
Nothing can get in or out.
Exactly. The gas continues to expand, crushing the surrounding organs, and worst of all, the twist cuts off the blood supply to the stomach tissue and the spleen.
Wait, so the tissue actually starts dying inside the dog?
Yes. Necrosis sets in very quickly. The dog will go into shock. It is the most acute, life-threatening condition for the breed, and it requires immediate emergency surgery to untwist the stomach and staple it to the abdominal wall.
That is terrifying.
And it's dictate whether the dog survives.
Which brings us to prevention. And this connects directly to the rules around their premium fuel.
Right.
Like, you cannot feed an Akita a massive bowl of food and then take them out for a run.
Never.
The sources are adamant. You have to prevent them from eating too rapidly, often by using puzzle feeders, and you must strictly enforce a period of calm rest for at least an hour after meals. You cannot allow that heavy, full stomach to start swinging like a pendulum.
Managing their activity around mealtimes is non-negotiable.
Definitely. And while we are looking at the veterinary text, there are a few other breed-specific vulnerabilities to mention quickly, just so you know what to watch for. Autoimmune diseases come up frequently, particularly hypothyroidism.
Right. Hypothyroidism occurs when the dog's immune system attacks its own thyroid gland, causing it to underproduce the hormone thyroxine.
And that controls metabolism, right?
Exactly. When those levels crash, the Akita's entire system slows down. They become lethargic, they gain weight without eating more, and they lose that luxurious coat we talked about.
But it's manageable.
It's manageable with daily synthetic hormones, yeah. But you have to catch it early through routine blood tests.
The sources also flag progressive retinal atrophy, or PRA, which is a slow degeneration of the photoreceptor cells in the back of the eye, eventually leading to blindness.
That one is heartbreaking.
Yeah. And then there's von Willebrand disease, which is a genetic disorder where the dog lacks a specific protein needed for their blood to clot properly.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to hemophilia in humans.
Right, so a minor cut can become a really serious issue. Regular vet checkups and screening by reputable breeders are your primary defenses here.
All these physical vulnerabilities really underscore the massive responsibility of ownership. You aren't just housing a dog. You are the manager of a highly complex biological machine.
I think that's the best way to look at it, yes.
All right, so we've fueled the machine properly, we've protected the skeletal chassis, and we understand the physics of preventing the engine from failing via bloat. Now we need to figure out how to actually drive it.
The fun part.
Right. How do we burn off their energy safely? Because as we established in the intro, mindless fetch is an insult to this breed.
Oh, it really is. You have to engage their history.
Tell me more about that.
Well, the Mataji hunters didn't use Akitas to retrieve sticks. They used them to track massive, dangerous game through deep snow, hold the animal at bay, and make independent tactical decisions while the human hunter caught up.
So they're thinking the whole time.
Exactly. The Akita's brain is wired for complex problem-solving and endurance. Running in circles after a tennis ball offers zero mental stimulation for a dog bred for that level of intense focus.
You know, the Japanese breed standard uses the term kani, which translates to bravery and spirited boldness.
I love that term.
Yeah, me too. And when reading about this trait, I kept picturing the Akita as a really proud, highly intelligent colleague at a demanding job. If you give a brilliant coworker mindless busy work, they're either going to ignore you or they're going to get incredibly frustrated and start tearing the office apart.
That is a perfect analogy.
You have to give this dog a meaningful project.
Engaging their brain is non-negotiable. They need purposeful activities to tap into that working DNA. The texts recommend agility courses, advanced obedience training, or bike joring.
Wait, bike joring? Having a 130-pound bear hunting dog pull you on a bicycle sounds terrifying if they decide to chase a squirrel.
Oh, it absolutely would be. That's why it requires intense foundational training and solid vocal commands before you ever clip them to the bike.
Okay, that makes me feel slightly better.
But once they learn it, the act of pulling activates their working drive. And if biking isn't an option, the sources suggest something as simple as having the Akita wear a weighted dog backpack during a hike.
Oh, I've seen those.
Yeah, the physical weight on their shoulders actually shifts their psychology. They realize they aren't just on a casual stroll, they're carrying the supplies.
So they have a job.
Exactly, they have a job, and their demeanor instantly becomes more focused and serious.
That makes total sense. Another massive recommendation in the behavioral texts is nose work.
Yes.
Because of their high prey drive and their history as trackers, scent work, and long sniffy walks provide incredible mental stimulation. But, why does sniffing burn so much more energy than running? I've always wondered that.
It's because the olfactory bulb in a dog's brain is massive compared to ours. When an Akita is actively tracking a scent, they are processing thousands of pieces of microscopic data. They are analyzing the age of the scent, the direction, the type of animal.
Wow, it's like a supercomputer.
Exactly. That level of neurological processing burns a massive amount of glucose. 30 minutes of intense scent work will exhaust an Akita far more thoroughly than an hour of jogging on a sidewalk.
And if you don't provide that mental exhaustion, the texts warn that a bored Akita will simply invent their own job.
And you do not want that.
No. Usually that self-appointed job is incessantly patrolling your house, becoming hyper-vigilant to every sound outside, becoming highly insular, and ultimately destroying your furniture out of pure frustration.
You also have to factor in the environmental triggers for their energy.
Right.
Akitas have what owners call a turbo button.
The turbo button.
Yeah. While they can be remarkably calm and quiet indoors during the summer, the moment the temperature drops and the snow falls, their ancient DNA kicks into overdrive.
They just come alive in the cold.
They will want to stay outside all day, plunging into snowbanks and reverting back to that energetic Mataji hunting state.
Which brings us to a critical safety aspect of their exercise. The social dynamics out in the real world. You cannot just unclip an Akita in a crowded dog park to let them burn off that turbo energy. They are highly territorial, they are naturally wary of strangers, and the texts are very firm that they frequently exhibit aggression towards same-sex dogs.
The behavioral texts are completely uncompromising on this point. An Akita should never be off-led in an unsecured area.
Never.
Right. You have to understand that from the Akita's perspective, their aggression is rarely unprovoked. It is deeply tied to their protective instincts and their territorial nature.
So they don't see another dog as a buddy.
Exactly. They don't view a strange dog running up to them as a friend. They view it as a potential threat to their pack.
And the texts point out that Akitas are actually very communicative about their discomfort. But humans often miss the signals. Like an Akita rarely just snaps out of nowhere.
They give clear warnings through canine body language.
Right, like a suddenly stiff body posture, intentionally avoiding eye contact, raised hackles along their spine, or a low, almost imperceptible growl.
The problem is that modern dog culture often expects all dogs to be universally friendly and social.
Which is just not realistic.
No. And when an owner misses those subtle warning signs, or worse, tries to force the Akita to make friends, the dog feels they have no choice but to escalate to physical force to protect their space.
And because of their sheer size and power, a sudden escalation is incredibly dangerous.
Exactly.
This is why early, intense, and ongoing socialization is required from the moment they are puppies. You have to constantly expose them to different people, environments, and sounds in a controlled, positive way.
And just to clarify, you aren't trying to make them love everyone.
Right. You are just teaching them what is a normal, boring part of the world and what is an actual threat.
Socialization teaches them emotional regulation. It also requires you to establish yourself as a calm, firm leader.
That's a huge part of it.
If the Akita doesn't trust your judgment, if they feel you are anxious or incapable of managing the environment, their working instinct tells them they must take over and guard the situation themselves.
But the key here is how you establish that leadership. The behavioral guides stress positive reinforcement and mutual respect. If you try to use old-school aggressive dominance training on an Akita, If you try to physically force them into submission, you will instantly shatter the bond, and you risk triggering a very dangerous defensive reaction. They demand your respect.
It is entirely a partnership. You earn their obedience by being fair, consistent, and providing the structure their intelligent minds crave.
So, to bring all these complex layers together for you, caring for an Akita is light years away from a casual undertaking.
Oh, it's a fundamental lifestyle adjustment.
It really is. It requires a financial and logistical commitment to premium, precisely balanced nutrition like the BARF diet to support their massive frames. It requires constant daily vigilance against life-threatening mechanical issues like bloat and joint wear.
And it requires a true dedication to providing purposeful, mentally draining activities.
Exactly. Things like nose work, weighted hikes, and agility, rather than just expecting them to entertain themselves in a backyard.
You have to be deeply attuned to both their physical machinery and their psychological need for clear boundaries and meaningful work.
Which leaves us with one final thought to mull over. We talk about Kane, that spirited bravery required by the Japanese breed standard. But the standard also mandates two other essential traits.
Right, Ryosei and Saboku?
Yes. Ryosei, which translates to good nature, and Saboku, which means artlessness with a refined, open spirit.
Bravery, profound gentleness, and a refined spirit. I mean, it's an incredibly demanding combination of traits to cultivate in a single animal.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, when we take on the immense responsibility of bringing an ancient, fiercely independent breed like the Akita into our modern, highly controlled lives.
Yeah.
When we learn to navigate their complex nutritional needs, protect their deep-chested anatomy, and engage their proud working minds, are we really just training the dog? Or is the dog actually forcing us to elevate our own standards of leadership, patience, and awareness?
Living with a primitive breed is the ultimate test of human adaptability.
I couldn't have said it better. Next time you see a heavy-duty truck out on the highway, remember, you can't pump it full of cheap fuel, you can't ignore the maintenance on its chassis, and you certainly can't expect it to handle like a golf cart. Treat the Akita with the profound respect its history and its engine demands, and you will have an incredible, lifelong partnership. We will catch you on the next Deep Dive.